Greetings. How's everybody doing on this Wednesday afternoon? I am here for the third day of the Conversations with Fathers series, and I will be discussing fatherhood with an actual fatherhood advocate, and that's Dion Showtime Chavis. Now, Chavis, um, you'll be like, what? But basically, right now, I am trying to ensure that he and I get the right page together. So I'm doing live interviews with people who have multiple pages. And so we have a little bit of added technical difficulty there. So y'all give us a second. Let me see here. Okay, that turned out to be no technical difficulty at all. So Mr. Chavis is a coming through right now. Let's see. Come on, come through Facebook. It says he's adding. Come on, Facebook, be my friend. Okay, come through Facebook. The behind the scene things that you guys don't see. So I'm like seeing the little image where it comes up and it's like semi coming and then it's not coming. But nonetheless, if you guys have been tuning in, which I hope you have, I've been interviewing Black fathers starting on Monday. So we've had some great conversations around fatherhood in the Black community. If you're familiar with my story, you know that I go all the way back to Clever Speaks, in which I advocate for the Black community, and it's important. No, you're not on yet, Mr. Chavis. I don't know what's going on. Could you possibly send me another request? Because I got it and I approved it, and there's a little circle here like you were trying to come on, and then something happened. So let me know if you can send me or try to send me another request so we can get this conversation going. If not, one way or the other, we'll work it out. We're going to get the conversation started. And as I was saying, so I'm an advocate for the Black community and also telling our stories, controlling our own narrative. I am also the product of a single father from 12 to 18 years old. And so discussing fatherhood in the Black community, discussing Black fathers is something that is important to me. I feel that it's a conversation that is not had often, and it is a conversation that is important for our community to be aware of, because if you guys follow the blogosphere and YouTube and just different media outlets, it seems to be a lot of strife. Let's see, between Black men and women right now in some aspects, and we definitely can't do this without one another. So it takes the Black mother and the Black father for the Black family and the Black community to thrive. There it is. There it is. We did it. We
Hey,
made it. All right. We did it like
we lit.
Dory. Yes. How's it going today?
It's shaking. Everything is good. Hold on, let me turn your volume on so I can hear you. All right, I think we in here. What's poppin'?
Oh, you got a little mace in your arms?
Mace is in the place.
All right. That's what's up. So you ready to have this conversation?
Definitely. Let me just make sure my phone is set up. All right, I think we good. Ugh. All right, let's get it going.
Let's get it going. So again, you all, we have Dion Showtime Chavis, and we're gonna chop it up about fatherhood. Like I said, he's an advocate for fatherhood, so this is gonna be a great conversation. Also, because he has like multiple, as this conversation goes on, you're gonna see that he has like multiple perspectives from which he can give his point of view around fatherhood. So first, I need all your info. I need all your beeswax. I need your name, your age, your marital status, how many churns you got,
Yeah.
their gender, and their
All right.
ages. Spill it.
All right, cool. So as you stated, Dion Showtime Chavis is the name. Showtime simply because I'm a longtime radio veteran. I was in Hampton Roads on the radio for years, I guess like maybe 10 years or so, something like that. Moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. Age, I got a birthday coming up next week, so I'll be the big 3'8", you know what I mean? Pushing 40, feel me? Pushing 40, so I'll be 38. Two kids though. My daughter she just turned 14 last week, and I just decided to do it all over again. So my wife and I have a 4-month-old, so 14 and 4 months. And just really just trying to be the best father that I can be, and trying to raise these babies and get out here and do everything for these kids and make sure that they don't need for anything emotionally, psychologically, physically. They have everything that they need um, to grow up happy and healthy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving up all your information like that. So, as we cultivate your fatherhood profile, the next thing that I want to ask you is what was your relationship like with your father, and how did that influence you as a parent?
Well, my father was murdered when I was 11 years old. So for the 11 years that he was around, for me, we didn't have necessarily the best relationship. He and my mother weren't together. They went through custody issues, and we were kind of on it every other weekend. And he wasn't necessarily the best father in my life for those years that he was around. But he was here for 11 years of my life, and I think the lack of me having a father growing up is kind of what motivated me to do any and everything for my kids and do the best that I could do. I didn't want my kids to grow up, just trying to figure out what it was like to have a father in their lives and what it was like to be around their dad and have their dad come to their games and come to their events and come to their dances and stuff like that. So I just decided to do any and everything that I could to make sure that I was always a part of my kids' lives.
Now, how old were you when you first became a father?
I was 23. My daughter was born when I was 23. Yeah.
Okay, so 23 is still young, especially being the age that you are now. You can really look back
Right.
at 23 and be like the tender age of 23. So what
Right.
was it inside of you? Because a lot of times when people don't have something, that will cause them to say like, okay, I didn't have a father, so I didn't have an example, so I don't know how to be a father. What made you do the opposite? What do you feel was the motivation or the catalyst, or what did you have inside of you that said, because I didn't have a father,
Right.
I'm going to do all that I can to be a father to my children? Because it could go
Well,
either way with people.
yeah, 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 definitely. I think my relationship with my mother is what kind of drove me to always want to be there for my kids. Me and my mom have always had like an awesome relationship. She's always been there for me, always supporting me, even to this day. I talk to my mom 2, 3 times a day, every day. Like if a day goes by and I don't talk to my mom, then there's a problem. If I call her and she don't answer on the first couple of rings, I get worried. You know what I mean? So I try to be sure that my kids have that same type of relationship with me that I have with her, just because that's the way that I was raised. So, I was raised in a home where my mom would tell me that she loves me every single day, and I follow that path. Like I tell my daughter that I love her probably 3, 4 times a day. I tell Mace that I love him, 5, 10 times a day, just because that's the way that I was raised. That's the way that I was brought up, and I just wanted all of my kids, to have that same type of love and have that same type of environment where they knew that I would always be there for them. They knew that I would always be there to protect them and provide for them and give them everything that they need, just like my mother did for me.
Shout out to moms. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I really wanted to get in with you, like I said, I'm finding this conversation is going to be interesting because you actually were a single father and
Mhm.
went through some of the baby mama, baby daddy drama for a long period of time, and then now I
Absolutely.
would consider you're still a newlywed and you're
Yep.
married with the so first it was a daughter, now you have a
Mhm.
son, and so you have all these different perspectives. So I want to rewind a little bit and ask you about some of the challenges that you faced initially when raising your daughter, like custody disputes, some of the things that you went through that you don't mind sharing, and more importantly, how that made you feel and how you were able to persevere through that.
Mhm. Yeah, well, my daughter's mother and I, we never had the best relationship. So I tell people all of the time, for the first 6 years of my daughter's life, her mother and I were in court every single summer. There wasn't a summer that went by from the years of 2004 to 2010 that I didn't step foot in a courtroom fighting for my daughter. Just because I felt like, again, there's nothing that should separate a parent from their child aside from death. So when my daughter's mother decided that she was going to leave, I was living in Virginia at the time, so she decided that she wanted to leave Virginia and move to Raleigh, North Carolina. I fought it. I fought it with everything that I had because I knew that I needed to be a part of my daughter's life. And for those first 6 years, we were doing what the courts call, it wasn't even joint custody at the time. I was what they would call a non-custodial parent. So I was just basically 50-50 legal, but not 50-50 when it came to actually being able to see the child. So going through those things and going back and forth and just standing in front of the judge and standing in front of the people and having to prove myself to say I am worthy of being in my child's life. I am worthy of having a role in my child's life because I'm her father, and I think far too many guys, far too many men have to go through that because there is a bias that says that men aren't necessarily able to take care of children the way that a woman can, or when a man goes into a courtroom, he's not necessarily favored because the judge automatically looks at the woman and says that she's the mother, so she should be able to have more time with the child. So I went through all of it. I went through court, I went through lawyers, I went through private investigators, I went through child support, I went through having the police called on me with false allegations of abuse. I went through having to basically prove myself to say that I am worthy of being in my child's life just because I was a father who wanted to be active, and the courts didn't see it that way. I tell people all the time, it's much easier for you to relinquish your rights as a father, relinquish your rights as a legal guardian or parent. It's much easier for you to do that than it is for you to go and say, hey, I'm active, I want to be involved in my child's life 50% of the time. You know what I mean? And that bias is there, and it's hurting so many fathers, it's hurting so many men because a lot of us don't have the resources, we don't have the money to go to court, we don't have the knowledge to say, well, some of this stuff I can actually do myself. I can, do a quick Google search and I can figure out how to fill out this particular form or how to file this particular motion on my own. And a lot of that stuff I did on my own, but when it was time for me to get a lawyer, I had to go and get a lawyer.
Wow. Yeah, you said there's a lot to unpack there, as far as not having the resources, whether it's financial resources, whether it is the knowledge of where to go or who to speak to or how to do it. And finances are definitely a big thing when it comes through to that. So
Yeah.
now going through all of that, how did it affect your morale?
Well, dealing with certain issues and dealing with, fighting for the ability to see your child, but you still have to function as a man. You still have to provide because, of course, a job doesn't want to hear, oh, well, I'm depressed today because I haven't seen my daughter in 30 days because of the ruling that a judge made, but I still got to have money so I can pay child support. So it's like the two go hand in hand. But for a lot of people and a lot of men, we don't do a lot of talking, but it takes an emotional toll. And I tell people, like, fatherhood saved my life. Because if it wasn't for the fact that I had somebody else to be accountable to, somebody else that I had to look out for, like, I don't know if I would be here. Like, I don't know if I would be able to maintain the stresses that kind of come along with just being a man, being an African American man in society. I don't know if I would have made it. You know what I mean? When you look at anxiety and depression and a lot of those things that come into your life. I mean, I say it all the time, like, just having to stand in front of somebody and prove your ability to raise your child, like, it's a huge burden, it's a huge anxiety, it's a huge, because you never know what the outcome is going to be, because it's not in your hands. It's in the hands of somebody who doesn't know you. It's in the hands of somebody who doesn't have any idea what type of parent you really are. A lot of these court cases, especially when the children are as young as my daughter was at the time, they bring in a guardian ad litem who has to come to your home and see that your living standards are up to par and that the other parents are living a certain way, and it takes a toll. So your morale, a lot of times I was defeated. There was times I would just burst out into tears just because it's like, why do I have to go through this just to be in my child's life? And just because, the mother and I may not be on the best of terms and we not necessarily be getting along like two adults should be getting along. We may not be communicating like two adults should be communicating, but why do I have to go through this and still just try to prove myself and show the world that I'm able to take care of my child and I'm able to be there for my child when I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything to say, okay, well, I'm unfit as a parent. I'm not capable of doing this. So it becomes a burden, but you still have to take all of that in and still go on and go to work every day and still, try to maintain other healthy relationships and not bring the baggage from this situation into other relationships and other situations, not just romantic relationships, but just for relationships with people. Because, when you fight in depression and when you fight in anxiety because you can't see your child the way you think you should see your child, the world doesn't necessarily understand that. The world doesn't necessarily understand the fact that there are men out here who want to be involved regularly in their children's lives and men who want to actively be a part of their children's lives. And if we don't get to do that, then of course that creates a certain level of stress and it creates a certain level of anxiety for us. And a lot of us don't necessarily know how to deal with that. And for me, it was one of those things that it caused me a lot of stress. It caused me a lot of anxiety. But fortunately enough, time kind of heals all wounds, so to speak. And I was able to still fight for my daughter and still have a relationship with her. So everything panned out and worked out for me. But it don't always work out like that.
Lord, I've definitely felt that. I appreciate you for being vulnerable and bringing the human aspect to this. And that's one of the reasons why I always want to do this, because I feel like the father's perspective, the fact that you all feel things, the fact that you guys go through a lot of things to be with your children, does not get expressed a lot, and also the fact that you guys usually don't have an outlet to have these types of conversations. So I really appreciate you bringing the human side to it, and the fact that it's important for people to know this about fathers, because in the past when I've done these conversations I've had, when I've done the panel discussions, family members have actually said, family members who were close to the fathers were like, I had no idea you were dealing with all of this.
Right,
So
right, right. Just because as men, society teaches us that we're supposed to bottle all of that stuff in. Like we're not supposed to express it. Like black men ain't supposed to go to therapy. Like black men ain't supposed to talk to their girlfriend or their wives about what they really going through. Like that's just what society teaches us. And I think that's BS. Because there's so many things that could go on. And I mean, look at me. Like literally, I've been through court. Like my daughter's 14. Like probably half of the time that she was alive, like we was going through custody battles. Like, you got to look at the toll that takes on you as a man, and just look at the way that it kind of affects you, and it affects your psyche, and it affects the way that you look at people, and it affects the way that you conduct yourselves in the real world. Because, just as men, like if you can't see your kids, like the kids that you helped bring into this world, like what else is there at this point? You know what I mean? Like, what else is more important than playing a part in your child's life? And that's why so many men give up. And that's why so many men walk away, because we don't have the means to talk to people about it. We don't have the outlets to let people know, like, look, this is what I'm going through. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I need help with. This is the situation. We don't have that. Like society doesn't look at, oh, you just a dad. Like, the baby good with his mom. Like, nah, like my child needs me, I need my child. Like it's a two-way street. The child needs just as much from the father that he needs from the mother. So how can you tell me that I shouldn't want to be more involved in my child's life? How can you tell me that I shouldn't want to be sure that my child is raised in a home where they know that they're loved? Like, nah, you can't do that. But that's just the way society teaches us. And so many of us kind of fall into that cycle of saying, I'm a man, I'm supposed to be tough, I'm not supposed to let nothing get to me, I'm not supposed to let nobody know that I'm going through this. And then we bottle it up, and then we end up taking it out in other relationships. So then it ends up releasing itself in other relationships. So we end up either self-medicating, or what I mean, becoming involved in other relationships that are just as toxic as the relationship was that we were in prior to that, because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to get over this feeling of being depressed and being hurt because of the fact that we can't see our kids, we can't be involved in our kids' lives. So, that's just one of the things that we as men have to look at ourselves and see, how can we kind of find that balance and find that level to give the kids what they want and always be a part of their life, because it's important.
yes, yes. And so as we move forward, we'll see that I'm glad that your story has, moved and progressed into a great story. But all the things that you have talked about are so true. And one of the things that I believe is that black men need to speak and talk to each other more. I'm hoping that as a result of these conversations and the type of things that you're doing, that men will feel more comfortable with being open and talking and reaching
Yeah,
out to one another. You know, a person like yourself may be able to identify the layers underneath if you know somebody is going through something, and just breaking those barriers and having those conversations. And then we as Black men and Black women, not even just in romantic relationships, but in general, have to start really seeing each other. We really have
yeah.
to start seeing each other, because that's where the foundation of these situations begin. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping that these conversations allow us to really start seeing the humanity of one another, and the fact that if we don't start doing that, then you know these situations will just become more and more difficult. So we'll get to your happy, I can't call it ending, but the new chapter. We're gonna go there.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I want to rewind a little bit and ask, do you have, well, no, first, how do you feel that you know, I asked about your morale. What about your daughter's morale? Do you feel that she was affected by that? Because I think it's important for people to hear, as well as you're articulating,
Yeah.
you know, how this affects the children when this is the route that parents have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my daughter, it's hard to say. You know, my daughter is she's very quiet, so to speak. She doesn't necessarily talk a lot about her feelings, but I know there were certain times and situations where she felt like she was trapped in the middle. So for me, it was always doing everything that I could do to be sure that she didn't feel like she caused any of this friction. I never wanted her to feel like anything that I was going through, anything that her mom was going through was because of her. Just because I know a lot of times kids can kind of internalize that stuff and they can kind of take that stuff with them to school, and it can play a part in their education and the way they kind of interact with other folks. So I never wanted her to feel like she was part of the problem or had anything to do with this situation. It's just two grown folks who couldn't get along. That's pretty much what it all boiled down to. Um, I think there were times, and there have been times, and still are times, where she felt like she has to choose. And I never want her to feel like she has to make a choice between me or her mom. And I've never been that parent to say, well, either you're going to do this with her or you can do this with me. It's, you know, for a lot of times, it's like, you got free will. Like, if you want to rock over here and, you know, do this with me, then cool. If you want to rock over there and do that with then that's cool. But I think she's held up pretty well. Like, it's been 14 years. She hasn't shown any signs of acting out or any signs of um, going through any real stress or any type of real problems because of this situation. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that kids are resilient. You know, we don't give kids enough credit for how resilient they really are. They can go through a lot and bounce right back. And, you know, she's never seen her mother and I together. So a lot of times kids who go through divorce, you know, let's say that the kids were 8, 9, 10 years old, they've actually lived that life of parents being together for such a long period of time, and it kind of affects them. My daughter's mother and I broke up when she was 6 months pregnant. So my daughter never knew us being in this. This is all she's known. You know what I mean? She's always had two homes for her to go to. She's always had two Christmases. She's always had two birthday celebrations. It's just always been that way. So, and
I
I
can
just have
relate to
open,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I just, you know, I've always just had open communication with her based on her level of maturity. So now the conversation that I have with her at 14 are different than the conversations that I would have with her when she was 9 or 10. Um, the conversations are realer now. You know what I mean? Like, I try not to, at this point, I'm not really sugarcoating too much. If you ask me something about what's going on, for the most part, I'm gonna let you know what it is because you old enough to know. And I want you to, I don't ever want it to be said that I hid anything from you, that I, you know, caused, there was any sort of gray area or any sort of ambiguity between me and you about the way that things really, really are in this situation. So I just try to, I keep it 100 every chance I get. And you know, I let you know if this is what it is what it is. And it ain't no other way. And
Word.
she accepts that. Like, she's cool with that.
Yes, I love you guys' relationship, and if people are interested in finding out more about that relationship, what's the YouTube channel?
The Glad Dad, man. Shout out Knees in the Trap. My daughter Knees in the Trap. Shout out to her. But the Glad Dad is just something that we kind of started just as a way to interact. You know, for me, it was a way for us to kind of do things together, and me to kind of build a bridge and connect with her, because the kids are all about technology. The kids are all about YouTube. The kids are all about doing challenges and stuff like that on YouTube. But it was just something cool that I wanted to do, that I thought this would be something great for us to do, to kind of spend more time together, to build our relationship and start really, really growing. And it's something that we haven't posted in a while, but we were just talking, we're going to start getting some post up
Yeah,
in
they
the
do
next couple
fun
of weeks. But it was
challenges,
just
and
something that we
then
just kind of
the
wanted to
one
do
thing
to
I
kind of
really
engage with
love.
each other and to build that relationship. And
It was a lag. It was a lag on my end. I didn't realize you were still talking. But they do fun challenges with food and different things, and then they like she is exposed, like, so y'all like trap music. I'm not into trap music, but they do trap, the current stuff, and she knows like Jodeci and all the classic music and everything. It is really fun to see a little teenager interacting with her dad and all the hip hop and everything. So it's really fun. You guys should check it out, The Glad Dad on YouTube. One more question on this side of things. I want to ask, since we talked about the custody a lot, do you have any advice for men who may be going through custody disputes right now?
got a lot of advice. I got a lot. But most importantly, I think you got to know your rights. That's the first thing for every man, because a lot of times, again, society teaches us that as men, we don't have the same rights as the father. But I'm gonna tell you, if your name on that birth certificate, if you sign that piece of paper and that child is yours, you got as much rights to that child as the mother does. So you have to know your rights. You have to find someone, and if you don't know your rights, find someone who can help you figure out what your rights are. Certain things may differ from state to state, but you got just as much right as anybody, as any other parent, to your child. And don't let the court system intimidate. It's an intimidating process. I think one of the last times I was down there in the court system, I spent 8 hours down there, like literally filing papers and going from this floor to that floor, and doing all of these things, and getting all of these motions done. But it was worth it. I know for a lot of guys, they work during the day, and I think that, is a barrier, can be a
Yeah.
hurdle that we got to. But you might have to miss 6, 7, 8 hours a day of work just to go downtown and fill your paperwork out, and do what you have to do to make sure that you are uh, down. And there's a legal document that says that there's a court order in place that says you have the rights to see your child. Because again, these court systems, they aren't built for us. They aren't built to help us. They aren't built to do what we think they should do. But it's a process that we 9 times out of 10 have to go through if the other parent is providing obstacles for us to see our child. Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important. What are we doing to be involved in the child's life? It's not about how much money you spend. I hear it all the time. Well, I don't have enough money to take my kids out. I don't have enough money to take them to McDonald's. I don't have enough money to take them to the movies. The park is free. Like, you can go to the park for free. Like, you can go to a museum for next to nothing. You can go to all of these different places, and you don't have to spend no money, because the kids don't care about how much money you spend. The kids don't care about how many Jordans you buy them. The kids don't care about how many pair of jeans and how many Air Max. They don't care about that. All they care about is the amount of time that you as a parent spent with them. Because when they grow up, they're not going to say, "Oh, my dad bought me 18 pair of Jordans when I was growing
Said
up." They're
no
going to say,
one.
"My dad was there for my recital. My dad was there for my first game. My dad was there for everything that I had going on. He met with my teachers at a parent teachers conference." Like, that's what's important. So do any and everything that you have to do to be involved, because it's all about, like, how are we raising this next generation? What are we doing to be sure that we're preparing this next generation for success? Like, because it depends on us. There was a lot of people in my age group, and Star, your age group, who say, well, we don't have like the old heads who teach kids, who teach the kids the lessons, and these kids lack of respect. That's because we're not teaching them. They don't have respect because we don't teach
Exactly.
them. We so
Exactly. You
caught
know
up
my thoughts
in
on
how,
that.
yeah, we so caught up in how we can serve ourselves and what we can do for ourselves, but ain't nobody telling these little boys to pull their pants up. We see it and we accept it. Like, we see it and we think it's cool. And, oh, that ain't my son, that ain't my daughter. But these babies need to be sure that we're doing everything that we can do to raise them, and to put everything in perspective for them, so they can have everything they need. So when we leave this earth, like, it's left in a better place. Like, we gotta know it's in good hands when we leave. Because if not, it's our fault. Like, it ain't their fault. It ain't the generations before us. It's our fault. Like if we ain't raising these babies, and if these babies are raised without their parents, without their dads, and they don't know how to conduct themselves, they don't know how to go on a job interview, and little boys don't know how to tie, little girls don't know how to conduct themselves, and they go, it's our fault. It ain't nobody else but us.
Right. The irony, people say a lot of times it takes a village to raise to raise the child, but they don't become active villagers. Like we have to become active villagers. And I say a lot of times, the minute something happens to one of our youth and it's hashtag Trayvon Martin, hashtag Tamir Rice,
Yeah.
everybody's in an uproar about it. But Trayvon's and Tamir's pass by us on a daily basis, and we turn our noses
Yep.
up at them or we look past them. So we do have to become active villagers, and we can't be afraid of our
And
own youth. So, but
yeah,
and
and not
another
only that,
thing
not
to
just
rewind about something you said to the advice to the fathers. Again, I think you said great things, and I'd also say utilize some things that you have right at your disposal, like Google. You know, look for fatherhood advocacy groups that are near you. Just do a Google search of that. Also, there are fatherhood groups on Facebook right now. Like you can just find some of those groups, and I'd say try to find a person who you can talk to. If it's somebody who you already know, who you're close to, or if you do find one of these groups on Facebook, and I did like there are Black fatherhood groups on here
Black father.
specifically, and you can find a partner right there, somebody who you can talk to, and you all already have that thing in common, so it's not going to be awkward. Like that's what they're there for. But you have to find somebody who you can talk to and bounce things off of your chest, because you can't just hold these things in. Now, to go to the other side. Now, so you had all those years of doing that as a single father with the daughter, and now you have been married for, ooh, I don't want to get you, I hope men got to know that date and time. You've been married for how long now, approximately? Could you
It'll
hear
be two
me?
years, October 15th, so about a year and a half.
Okay, about a year
Yeah,
and
can
a
you hear me?
half. So now you are a married man, and you, in addition to your daughter, you have a
Makes sense,
son.
y'all.
So I want to talk about the
Yeah.
differences that you see with that. I'd like to know what are the influences that your spouse has on your fatherhood journey now, or what are the differences that you see with doing it initially as a single father in a contentious relationship, and now doing it in the within the confines of a marriage.
Yeah, well, it's totally different. So first and foremost, it's been 13 years for me. So, these new kids, they come out with a phone in their hand. They come out ready to play all the games on your phone and like almost talking and walking as soon as they come out of the womb. And they got to eat every 2 hours, including at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, they wake up ready to eat. I don't remember that happening 13 years ago. But, just being able to have a partner to do it with, and being able to have someone that you can, so you know that you're not doing it on your own. So you know that you're not alone. So uh-oh. Hold on, y'all. May said he wanted to say something.
Young Mace, what you got to say? You gonna spit some bars for us?
The monster right here. May's the monster. Um, So it's just totally different. I appreciate my wife Aisha for everything that she's done, and especially being with someone who knows the history, knows the things that I've been through with my previous situation, and being a single father for so long. So having someone who can be sensitive to that, and be sensitive to what comes along with just the baggage that we all bring, whether it be relationship baggage, whether it be relationship baggage as dealing with a co-parent, and dealing with someone who you all haven't always had the best relationship with, but just the fact that now as a father, I'm in the home with my child, so I see Mace every single day. When Nyla was this age, I didn't see her every day. It was practically every other weekend for the most part when she was this small. So a lot of things that happened with her, I missed out on. And I look back and I say, man, I missed um, certain things. I missed the first time she actually took her first steps. I was there maybe later on that day, or maybe later on that week. I can't remember exactly, but the first time she took a step, I wasn't there. So with Mace, it's different. Like I see Mace all day, every day. So during the day, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I work at night. I work from 7 to midnight. So For me, it's just like it's eye opening to see that, number one, how fast they grow and how fast these babies are really, really moving, and the stuff that you missed out on when you're not involved in your child's life, and the things that you kind of don't see when you aren't able to participate in your child's life on a daily basis. So that, I mean, that's the main difference. It's just having someone there in my corner, having someone, a better support system. And then I'm older, so I was 23, I'm 38. So we had, we had 15 years at this point. So it's a different outlook. It's a different way of parenting. It's a different way of just going about your life. Like I said, I times have changed. Like I was in a car dealership today, and they had a changing table in the men's bathroom. I don't recall them having a lot of those. There were the family bathrooms back in the day where you could go in and it's a small room, or, but other than that, like, things have changed. So I'm just glad to be a part of his life, and glad to be a part of Aisha's life, and, just glad to be kind of raising this family together. And you said something about a village, and, it takes a whole village. Like, the village got to be whole, which means that all of the villagers have to be ready to put in and play their part and play their position every time out. So this is my team. Like, this is who I run with. Like, I'm the coach, and Aisha's the assistant coach, and Mace and Knees in the trap. They're just, they players on the game, and it's our job to be sure they're fully functional when they leave this house. And when it's time for them to go out into the real world, I got to make sure they got everything they need without depending on the world to give them things, or without looking at the world for satisfaction, or to look at social media to get the things that they need. They got to know that they got everything they need as soon as they walk out of the house.
I love it. I think that's great. You definitely have a great story there. Now, what are some of your greatest moments as a father?
Some of my greatest moments as a father. Just off the top of my head. So my daughter is, she's pretty good in math. I'm horrible in math. I'm horrible, like horrible in math. So I've always made it a point to kind of, teach her things ahead of her grade level. So as a parent, I've always felt like that it's our responsibility. It's not the school's responsibility. It's our responsibility to teach our
Yes.
kids the
Say
things
that.
yeah. So one of the things that I've done, when she was younger, we started working on multiplication, because when I was growing up, I struggled with multiplication a little bit. So I wanted to be sure that she didn't. I wanted to be sure that she had everything that she needed when it came to knowing math, and to knowing just the fundamentals of mathematics. So I would always teach her ahead of her grade level the things that she needed to know. So one summer, I think we worked on double-digit multiplication, and I taught her how to multiply, 10 times 10, 10 times 20, whatever. So later on in that school year, I went to a parents teachers conference, and the teacher was telling me that they were working on double digit multiplication. She was introducing it to them. And my daughter was like, well, I already know how to do it. And the teacher, she showed the teacher how to do it, and this, that, and the third. And the teacher asked her, well, how do you know how to do this? And she said, my dad taught me. And like, when the teacher told me that, like, tears just started flowing from my eyes, because it's like, okay, regardless of what I've been through, like, she recognizes that I'm here. Like, she recognizes that I'm giving her these tools that she needs to go out here and function in the real world. And that just meant the world to me. So that right there was probably one of my most proudest moments, when that teacher looked at me and said, no, your daughter said her daddy taught her. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, cool. So I'm doing something right over here.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great moment, a great fatherhood moment. Have you
That,
had
and
any with
Mason.
the little one yet?
Yeah. Mace, when Mace was born, Aisha had she had a C-section. So she had a C-section. I couldn't be in the, I guess, the delivery room when she had the C-section, because they had to put her out. They had to give her anesthesia so she would go to sleep for a little bit. So after the procedure was over, they had me in the waiting room, and the doctor called me in, and they had Mace on the table, and he was just fresh out, just crying and crying, wah, 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 wah. So I walked over to him. They had him on the table. I walked over to him, and he grabs my finger, and as soon as he grabbed my finger, he stopped crying.
Oh.
I started crying.
A transfer of tears.
Right. It transferred from him to me. He stopped crying and I started bawling in front of them people. So, stuff like that is just really, really those type of moments that I won't ever, ever forget as a dad, as a parent, those type of things. And a lot of the things I do too, just this is kind of off topic, but one thing that I've always done is I do a lot of journaling when it comes to the kids, or for a long time I would journal to Nyla. So I have a journal that I've written in probably for I want to say maybe like 8 or 9 years, with just thoughts and emotions and
Mm,
feelings and things that I'm going through that she doesn't even know about, and I don't even want her to have it or read it or see it or touch it until I pass away.
wow.
And my instructions inside of the journal that if anything has ever to happen to me, that whoever finds it is to give it to her, and for her to be the only one who reads it, so she'll know my side of things, and she'll know. Hold on, Monster. She'll know my side of things, and she'll know what my perspective is. Because again, my dad died when I was 11, so it's just now that I'm starting to come to grips as an adult with the fact that I never knew what his perspective was. I was raised by my mom, so I knew what she told me was going on. But I never knew what his perspective was. I never knew um, what his viewpoint on like the custody situation was. We have I have a couple other siblings on my dad's side, who I kind of talk to now, and we've had discussions. I've had discussions with my older sister about like, well, you were around for a lot longer than me, so how do I come to grips with the fact that he wasn't here, but I knew there was stuff going on with him and my mom that, as an adult, now I understand. As a child, I didn't, but now it's like, well, maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe he wasn't going through, the way that it was portrayed to me. And that's not any type of knock or anything on my mom. I mean, she can only give me her perspective. Like, she's a woman, a single parent raising a child, so she can only give it to me from her point of view. But now as an adult, it would be dope if I could hear it from my dad's point of view. Like, all right, Pops, like, what was going on? Like, why was you wilding? Like, what was you doing? What was really, really going on in your mind that made you act like this? But I'll never have that. So I want to make sure that my kids, at least if something happens to me today, they at least have something to tell them what my perspective was and what my thoughts were on fatherhood, at the least. Not just um, life, but at least they would know how I felt about them, especially for Nyla. Um, I want her to know, like, all of this stuff that was going on in and out of court, back and forth, child support, custody. I don't know what you've been told on that other side, but when it's all said and done, this is my perspective of how everything played out. This is how I want me to think about. You just know that I never gave up. I never stopped fighting for you. I don't care how hard it was. I don't care what the obstacle was. I never stopped fighting. I never gave up, and I never put anything before my relationship with you. And that's just something that I've always done, and I'll always. I think with Mace it's gonna be a little different. I think with Mace it'll be something electronic. I think we won't. He's got an email address set up, so I think I'm gonna send him emails periodically, and then when he gets older, he can kind of just go through and just read all of the emails and just again have my perspective on everything.
That's dope. I hope you have Nyla's stuff, the journals, and something that is fireproof and waterproof, and um yeah, because that's awesome. I think that's really great. Let me see. One of the last things I want to ask you, if there are any men who are not involved in their children's lives, their child or their children's lives right now, what would you like to say to them?
Man, I think Sean Carter said it best. Like, a man that don't take care of his family can't be rich. So, a lot of times as men, we want all of these things to come to us. We want all of these great things to happen to us. We want the world to look at us in a certain light. But as fathers, a lot of that comes from the way that we raise our babies. A lot of that comes from what we're doing as fathers to contribute to society. So that's first and foremost. We can't expect to have a happy life or certain things in life if we're not taking care of our responsibilities. And if you're not taking care of your responsibilities, you're missing out on so much. Like, I've been all across the world, LA, New York, DC, this celebrity, Jay-Z, Beyonce. I've done all of this stuff in my life, in my career. Nothing could ever match the feeling of me just sitting here holding this little boy in my arms right now. Nothing feels better than that. So, just, take the time. And I know it gets hard. I know it gets difficult. I know the road is rough. But you gotta find a way to satisfy what these kids need, and these kids need two parents. Like they need both parents in their life to sustain them, because there's things that, again, a wife or a mother can teach a daughter that I I can have a conversation with my daughter, but it's different. It's things that my wife can talk to my son about, but she can't teach him how to be a man. She can't teach him how to conduct himself under certain circumstances, because she doesn't know. Like, she doesn't know what it's like to be racially profiled and pulled over by the police and threatened to have a cop beat you up just because of the color of her skin, just because you're a black man in America. She doesn't know about certain microaggressions that occur simply because you're a black man in America. So these babies need both of us. They need both parents to come in and play their part. And again, it's all about teamwork. And as a team, everybody play their position, everybody play their role, but it's all about what are we doing as a unit, as a village, to be sure that these kids get out here happy, they get out here healthy. They're not, following these generational curses that so many of us have. They're not going down the path of being addicted to drugs or self-medicating themselves just to get over the fact that they didn't have a father in their life. Like, that stuff takes a toll on you. Like, even if we think, I was listening to somebody talk the other day, and this guy, he's a new father, and they were talking about another father was just trying to help him along the way. He's like, man, I don't care about that fatherhood stuff. I don't care about this. He can't teach me nothing. There's always somebody that can teach us something. There's always somebody that we can learn from. There's always somebody that we can kind of pick their brain and learn how to be better. I ain't the best dad in the world. Like, I've made a million mistakes since I've been a father. I make mistakes every single day, but that don't stop me from trying. That don't stop me from doing everything that I need to do to be a part of my kids' lives, because I know they need me. And I don't ever want to live in a world where my kids say, my dad didn't do this, my dad didn't do that, my dad wasn't here for this. Because again, if that's the world that we're living in, then how am I expecting anything positive to come in my life if I'm not even taking care of my own responsibilities? And I think that's where it all has to start off. As men, stepping up to the plate, taking care of our responsibilities, and not being afraid to talk to people, not being afraid to open up and let people know exactly what's going on in our lives. And I think it just doesn't get any more urgent than where we are right now. Like, the sense of urgency is real. Like, we as fathers, we have to step up to the plate, and we got to do everything that we can do to be sure that these babies get everything they need to be raised properly.
Word. So now I had two final questions that I always kind of try to,
You froze up.
based on the conversation, I try to figure out which one I'm going to ask. And you answered one, you kind of answered both. So I'm going to go with this one instead of the other one. 30 years from now, what do you hope the condition of the Black family will be?
Say that one more time.
30 years from now,
You
what do
breaking
you
up. Say it one
hope?
more time. I couldn't hear you.
30 years from now, what do you hope the condition of the Black family will be?
I heard 30 years from now. I ain't hear nothing else.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny, while we're talking, so many hip hop quotables have come in my head, and I'm trying to keep it, like strictly not hip hop, and just have this interview because it was aligned with 30 years. But I said 30 years from now, what would you hope the condition of the Black family will be? How would you envision it? What would you like to see? Because I know there's a lot of complaints
Oh,
about
30 years from
the
now, what
way
would I
things
hope the
are right
condition of the black
now.
family will be?
Yeah. Did you hear me?
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
think 30 years from now, I think number one, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me. Okay. So, okay. So 30 years from now, I think my hope is that the black family will be um, fully intact. I think we as the black community will have a full understanding of the importance of taking care of our family. And a lot of us do understand that, and a lot of us do understand the importance of taking care of these babies. But I think also we would also be looking forward, not just looking at what's going on presently. So I'm huge on legacy building and, building the legacy for the next generation. So I think in 30 years, I mean, we in 30 years, went 2000. I ain't get a math. 2000, what's that? 48 or something like that. 18, 20, 2048. So I think we're looking. I think we're looking for. We're looking forward to the future, and I think we are in charge of our own destiny. We understand the importance of entrepreneurship. We understand the importance of family business or no business. I think a lot of us need to get employed for ourselves and start looking at leaving employment opportunities for the younger generation and leaving making employment opportunities for our kids, so they don't necessarily, if they don't go to a 4-year university, they can still come out and have something waiting for them. It's important. I was just listening to an interview with the dude from Starbucks, Howard Schultz, who was the founder of Starbucks, and he started Starbucks because his pops gave him $250,000. Like, what? We already, economically, we had a disadvantage a lot of times because we don't necessarily look at what there is for us to leave, and we're not training these babies up and giving them all of the tools that they need to walk into success and to walk into this world and fend for themselves. So I think for me, 30 years from now, I think the Black family needs to be intact. It needs to be whole. It needs to be more folks looking towards what our futures are and where we're going and how we can kind of conduct ourselves in a way that can prepare us for the next level of living.
I agree. Good stuff there. Definitely, definitely. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview. You definitely had some great insight on fatherhood in the Black community. Is there anything else that you would
For
like
sure.
to say about fatherhood and about your own endeavors, things that you have going on before we wrap this up?
So yeah, so again, just there's two things. So about fatherhood, again, as a father, if I can just speak to any father out there who isn't involved in their child's life, who might not necessarily have a role in their child's life, there's certain things that you just have to understand. Like I said before, nothing should separate you from your children. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that should separate you from your kids is death. I moved from Hampton Roads, Virginia, top-rated morning radio show, to Raleigh, North Carolina, just because I didn't want to do every other weekend visitations with my daughter anymore. She got sick one time. She had to go into the hospital. And after that, for maybe 6 months, I did everything I could do to move from Hampton Roads, Virginia, to Raleigh, North Carolina, because there wasn't anything that I could say was more important than being a part of her life. Because if something were to happen to her, I didn't want to have to drive 3 hours. I wanted to be able to take her to school every morning. She's going into ninth grade, and I was telling her the other day, I said, well, next school year is going to be the first time that I won't be able to like walk you to school on the first day of school. So I'm still kind of trying to cope with that. Like, how is that going to work? Like, every year from kindergarten, like, I've either walked you to school or I've seen you on the first day of school. So now you in the ninth grade. I don't really know. I don't know how your friends gonna act when they see me walking up to the school, like me and you holding hands, and I don't think that's gonna be acceptable. So um, just 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 gotta understand that these kids, they need us in every aspect of their lives, psychologically, emotionally, educationally. It's our job to do everything that we can do to be a part of these kids' lives and raise them the best way that we can possibly raise them. My endeavors, I'm getting involved in a lot more fatherhood advocacy work. Of course, I've been working with fathers for years, dealing with groups of fathers and teaching fatherhood curriculums. But I also do speaking engagements. I do workshops on how to engage with kids and how to use hip hop and pop culture as a bridge to meet kids where they are. So I'm traveling around the country a lot this summer. I'll be in Virginia in August. I think I'll be in Texas a couple of times this summer. So if you're in like Dallas, Fort Worth area, Arlington, Texas, Galveston, Texas, I'll be in later on this summer actually. Um, just link up with me. So follow me on Instagram. You can find me at the Glad Dad on Instagram. Facebook, The Glad Dad, you can like that page. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. YouTube, The Glad Dad, give that a thumbs up, like
You
that.
got a
And
subscriber on here.
just, if I can, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Everybody subscribe to that thing. Just, if there's anything I can do as a father, as a man, if anybody out there just needs somebody to talk to, just, hit my inbox, feel free to hit me up and we got to figure out a way to make this thing work because these babies are so important to us and really the major key of everything that we're trying to achieve in life revolves around what we're doing with these babies and how we're raising these kids to be fully functional and live their lives at the next level.
That's what's up. So yeah, great things going on in the Chavis household. Love it. Again, congratulations on the new little one. And then I can't believe Nyla is headed to high school. That's just crazy, but it's awesome. Thanks for dropping these jewels. And again, Black fathers matter. Both parents matter in when it comes to raising a child. And again, my story is that I was raised by my dad from 12 years old until 18 years old. And that's why this is an important piece to me so that the father side can be heard. And if you've been tuning into these interviews every day at 3 p.m. and 8 p.m., then you hear how dads really do step up and step in for their children, and that it really, men have hearts and feelings too when it comes to this and when it comes to life. So again, us seeing and recognizing each other and the importance of us in the households, raising the children, and within the village. Tune in, everybody, tomorrow at 3 p.m. I know if you've been looking at the flyer, this is going to be a change, but at 3 p.m., I'll be interviewing Wise Intelligent of Poor Righteous Teachers, and he'll be talking about his fatherhood journey. So come back to hold on, call coming in. I thought I had it on do not disturb. But thanks again, Show, for doing this interview. You dropped a lot of great jewels. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. And we'll do this again some other time. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Clever. Are you Clever? I'm sorry, Clever, Star Clever,
I
Star Clever.
answer to it all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for even having me. I appreciate you having
No
me up here, man.
problem.
Just salute to you for what you're doing for fathers and recognize. Just keep up the good work.
Thanks. I appreciate it. All right, y'all. Peace.